Hello and welcome back to another in-depth weather video. Today we are talking about the Texas severe threat for today, which is March 14th. And this is definitely a very weird severe threat because it's very, very isolated to one section, which will be seeing the most severe impacts, but it's still going to be impacting a wide area, if that makes sense. So let's get right on into it. Starting off with the Storm Prediction Center page, we do have slight and marginal risks, no enhanced risk as of the time I'm recording this, which is Sunday night. But we have a slight risk across 52,000 square miles and a population of 8.7 million people, including Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, Plano, and Garland, Texas, and a marginal risk across 96,000 square miles and a population of 10.7 million people, including Houston, Texas, Pasadena, Texas, Waco, Texas, Lafayette, Louisiana, and Beaumont, Texas. Tornado threat. We do have a very small area in that 5% tornado risk, only 6,000 square miles and a population of, let's call that 400,000 people, including Greenville, Texas, Sulphur Springs, Texas, Mount Pleasant, Texas, and Commerce, Texas, that very, very small area in the parts of Northeast Texas. Then we have 2% risk across 25,000 square miles and a population of 1.6 million people, including Shreveport, Louisiana, Tyler, Texas, Longview, Texas, Bossier City, Louisiana, and Lufkin, Texas. We have winds, which roughly line up with your categorical risk, but 15% chance of strong winds across 30,000 square miles and a population of 2.1 million people, including Shreveport, Louisiana, Tyler, Texas, Longview, Texas, Bossier City, Louisiana, and Lufkin, Texas, and 5% risk across 81,000 square miles and a population of 15.5 million people, including Houston, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth, Texas, Arlington, Texas, and Plano, Texas. Finally, hail. We have a 15% chance of hail, and there is possibility of some of that hail being larger than 1 inch, but this is just for 1 inch hail. 15% chance across 52,000 square miles and a population of 8.7 million people, including Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth, Texas, Arlington, Texas, Plano, Texas, and Garland, Texas, and a 5% chance of hail across 96,000 square miles and a population of 10.6 million people, including Houston, Texas, Pasadena, Texas, Waco, Texas, Lafayette, Louisiana, and Beaumont, Texas. We also have a secondary threat. This is day 3, where we do have slight and marginal risks. We have a slight risk across 17,000 square miles and a population of 4.6 million people, including Orlando, Gainesville, Clearwater, Spring Hill, and Deltona, Florida, and a marginal risk across 35,000 square miles and a population of 7.3 million people, including Jacksonville, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Tallahassee, and Cape Coral, Florida. We do not have specifics for this severe threat yet, but I'm assuming that that's mostly for wind and some hail, but there could be some thunderstorms mixed in there as well. So we're going to be focusing on Texas today. And here is the NAM 3-kilometer model. We have this low pressure here. This is our setup. The warm air from the Gulf is going to get pulled up with the cold air coming off the Rockies, kind of bringing on that spin, that rotation that we assimilate with supercells and tornadoes. So throughout the day on Monday, relatively quiet until the very end of the day when this low pressure starts to dip to the south. We start to see more activity in parts of East Texas, and we start to see right in here a low pressure system start to form, and you can see those thunderstorms starting to fire up. And when I say an isolated area is getting the worst impacts, this is that isolated area, and everywhere else we'll be seeing those marginal impacts, but there's still impacts nonetheless. But the most severe impacts will be starting up. This is right around, let's call that 7 p.m. Central Time. I have to readjust because of daylight savings. So this is right around 7 p.m. Central Time, and the impacts continue to move through the area and eventually affecting the larger areas, the larger population centers, of course, of Texas, right around that time as well. We kind of start to see some of those impacts. This is right around 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Central Time, where we start to see those impacts moving through Dallas, Fort Worth, Tyler, and then eventually we see all of this move into Louisiana. Now this is midnight where we have that low pressure forming, still impacting East Texas, but moving into Shreveport here right around 2 a.m. Central Time with that low pressure now off the coast of Louisiana, where we see those marginal impacts in parts of southern Louisiana, maybe even New Orleans getting involved there as well. But at that point, the severe threat kind of shifts into parts of Louisiana and Arkansas, and eventually into the southeast. And we'll look at the southeast in just a second. Now, in terms of the energy that the thunderstorms have to develop, we will see a lot of energy getting pulled up from the Gulf, and we can see here over 1,000 joules per kilogram of energy across a wide area, mostly in that area of slight risk, and we could see energy up to 1,500 joules per kilogram as this severe threat continues to move through the region. So very energetic thunderstorms in the area. Now, in terms of that tornado threat, we are talking about a very isolated area getting into that tornado threat, and that's really just this area. We have a 1.6 torcon, basically. This is our significant tornado parameter. That's the definition in that yellow box if you want to pause and read it, but I'm just going to move on here. This is basically our torcon. 1.6, 1.7 is the highest value here, and in that very small area just southeast of the major population centers of Dallas and Fort Worth, before eventually that tornado threat kind of diminishes as it starts to move on. So best chance of tornadoes is going to be right around here, which is right at 8 p.m. Central Time. So as that threat moves out, we then shift our focus to the southeast. So I'm going to just go over these tabs again, and let's move into the southeast. So as these storms move into the southeast, we really will have minimal impacts, as mostly this low pressure system moving through will create a little bit of turbulence, instability in the atmosphere across parts of Florida. But again, most of that will be Tuesday night. This is right around, let's call that 5 a.m. Eastern Time. We start to see some thunderstorms in parts of northern Florida, but just isolated thunderstorms across the entire region. More significant thunderstorms here. This is right around 7 a.m. Wednesday morning, where we could start to see St. Petersburg and Tampa getting those severe thunderstorms before eventually we start to see it move into parts of eastern Florida. Now we're going to move this over to the southeast as well, and this is our energy for those thunderstorms, which is going to be relatively quiet. So as that moves through, we could see areas get into that 1,000 joules per kilogram range, but most of the areas that we'll see up to 2,000 joules per kilogram will be off the coast. But on land, we'll only be seeing about 1,000 to 1,500 joules per kilogram, which is still significant, but not as significant as we would be seeing in Texas. Now, finally, let's take a look at our significant tornado parameter, and we can see here that the chance of tornadoes is very slim. I think the best chance for any tornadoes will be a waterspout or two that moves onto the coast of Florida, maybe in areas such as, Tampa, St. Petersburg, areas right around this time period here. So yeah, areas north of Tampa, St. Petersburg, in those areas could be seeing that waterspout move onto the coast. And I was looking at the wrong area for Tampa earlier. So this main threat here is north of Tampa, St. Pete. I was looking at a different inlet there. But overall, I think the most significant impacts are going to be in the Dallas, Fort Worth, greater metropolitan area, and those areas could be seeing mostly strong winds and hail, potentially up to, let's say, golf ball sized hail. But I do think that the overall tornado threat will be very condensed. I think that the tornadoes will be kind of consolidated to maybe areas in the suburbs of Dallas, Fort Worth, but we could see that change within the next 24 hours. So stay tuned here for any updates on this severe threat by subscribing and clicking the bell. But that is all the information that I have for today. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.